Welcome back to the Kevin O'Connor Show. We got a good one today talking NBA playoffs and the latest news with Nate Duncan from Dunked On, with him and Danny LaRue, Hollander and Duncan. Nate Duncan, you're everywhere. How you doing today, man?
Well, right now I'm here.
Appreciate you being
doing
here
really
right
well.
now, man. I'm very glad to pod with you. It's been a while since we did a show, but we got a lot to talk about today with the playoffs, opening weekend, and some game twos on Monday night. Let's start there. The Clippers beat the Nuggets in game two, and this was just an absolutely awesome game. Zubats and Jokic battling all game. You had Russ hitting threes. There was weirdness. Murray literally picked up Norm Powell that caused a little bit of a scuffle. And then, of course, it was just a brilliant Kawhi Leonard performance. In the final minute, up a point, he intercepted a Jokic pass where he used his whole wingspan, showed why he has the Claw nickname. And then the next play, he hit a 21-foot pull-up jumper, stopped on a dime for his 38th and 39th points, which capped off a brilliant game by him. 39 points, 15 of 19 from the field, 4 of 7 from three, 5 of 5 from the line. It was the 7th highest true shooting percentage any player had posted when scoring over 35 points in playoff history. Nate, considering how incredible Kawhi was in that game, I can't believe the Nuggets weren't sending two, blitzing, doubling Kawhi Leonard down the stretch every play of that game.
Yeah, I thought they tried to on occasion, but then they also were worried about other guys beating them as well. And as crazy as it is to say, even with Kawhi scoring the 39 points, you can lock in on the micro stuff of why the Nuggets lost down the end. But the biggest thing that I think we should be focused on in this series is that the Nuggets are not scoring well. And that's like, this is a team that had a 125 offensive rating with Nikola Jokic on the floor. That's just, I think, the highest on-court offensive rating for a certain player on a certain team ever. And they've kind of slowed down Jokic. He hasn't really been effective in the post. They spent the entire first half putting him out at the 3-point line, having him be more of a playmaker and a shooter. He wasn't as involved there. And so I think the Nuggets have defended quite well, even with Harden going off in game one and Kawhi going off in game two. But if the Nuggets aren't going to score better than this, I think the Clippers are going to figure it out enough on offense. And so you just have to believe that Jokic and Jamal Murray are going to play better than they've played so far, because it does feel like the Nuggets are in trouble right now. Do you think so?
I think you're spot on there. That is the key, especially from the Nuggets' perspective and in the whole series. You have Jokic in game two. Game one, he put up good numbers. It felt like it was hard, though. Nothing came easy. And then in game two, weird game. He's missing free throws. He has 7 turnovers, some sloppy turnovers, especially where he's just throwing the ball away, including that Kawhi interception that I mentioned in the final minute. He had the offensive rebound and then took this weird turnaround shot, and he kind of hit his head afterwards. It felt to me, Nate, that with Jokic, he's getting defended by Zubats one-on-one a lot of the time, but he's getting tired, man. He plays the whole second half. It's like these mental lapses, mental mistakes. How much of it do you think is fatigue for Jokic? How much do you think of it is the scheme with what the Clippers are doing against him? What's your assessment of why Jokic is struggling so far in the series in comparison to what you expect from him?
Ivica Zubac, I think, is the number one reason that I would point to, because he's doing the best job that I can recall defending Jokic in the post, at least through 2 games. We've seen Jokic struggle before and figure it out in series. Draymond Green had a nice run against him in 2022 when Jokic didn't have as much around him, and we saw the Wolves really flummox him at times last year too. But Zubac's being able to defend him in the post and having the mobility to get out of him. And then also a huge part of defending Jokic is not only defending him, but then being able to switch on to Jamal Murray at times as well. And it certainly helps that he has the guy that I think is the best guard defender in the league, not Dyson Daniels, but Chris Dunn, at his disposal as well.
He was amazing. Incredible.
Yeah.
You see that?
He's been amazing in both games. Yeah.
Into that turnover where he kind of helped off and then just immediately jumped back knowing the pass was going to come from Jokic. I think it was to Gordon the second half, if I remember correctly. Just incredible.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is that he just shows up places, right? Like under the basket, leaving guys at the perfect time. And yeah, so the fact that the Nuggets had 20 turnovers, Jokic had 7, Dunn was a huge part of that. And the Clippers have some other sharks too. I mean, even Powell and Harden, not great defenders, but those guys will break on the ball and make a play. Obviously, they have Kawhi. Like, all 4 of those guys had multiple steals in this game. So that's where I think Denver might be in a little bit of trouble. They really only have 6 guys that David Adelman trusts right now too. And they went for it with Jokic playing the whole second half. I think even though they're up 1-0, I think they kind of realized the way they're playing, they need a 2-0 cushion to take this one. They didn't get it. They have 2 days off, so I don't think it's going to be a huge factor going forward. But I understand why David Adelman went the way that he did.
Yeah, totally understandable, the playing Jokic the whole second half. But I do think he was worn out towards the end, in part because of Zubats, in part just because of, the amount of minutes he's played all year, the amount of minutes he played in this single night. But I thought, from the defensive perspective for the Clippers, it was interesting how first 3 quarters they, played typical pick and roll coverage on those Jokic Murray pick and rolls. But then later in the fourth quarter, they blitzed it 5 times. They blitzed Jokic Murray pick and rolls. First time, Bogey scram switched to Jokic, who threw it out of bounds. And the second time they did it, Kawhi switched on to Jokic. He heavily contested a fadeaway. Nuggets got an offensive board on that, but still really good defense prior to that. And then the third and fourth time happened on the same possession. First time, Dunn deflected a Murray pass. Again, like you said, he just pops up everywhere. And then the second time was the Gordon missed dunk that he had, this open missed dunk. But Murray was falling out of bounds prior to that. Like, it was almost a turnover. He just, carelessly kind of tosses it in bounds. Nuggets get it, find Gordon. He misses. And then the fifth time, Harden, you mentioned him. He's not a great defender. He was not great in game 1, especially on the boards. But fifth time in this fourth quarter, Harden's roaming off ball. Kawhi and Powell are kind of playing a zone against Russell Westbrook, Brown, and Gordon on the other side of the floor. And Denver, I feel, that decision, the ability to do that and having Harden roam, Denver just doesn't have enough shooting with a lot of their lineups. They don't have a lot of guys. And so if it's Russ out there, I know he hit 3 of his 6 threes, but you're not worried about Russ. And if it's MPJ out there, he had a good game, 15 points, 15 rebounds, but that means that might be giving something back on defense. He plays, a good game overall. Don't want to take anything away from him. A game tied at 100. Nuggets send 2 at Kawhi, play awesome defense, forcing a tough shot. MPJ gets a defensive board. He looks to outlet to Gordon, whose back is turned, and I think MPJ kind of realized it in the middle of the pass, and he fumbles the ball, and he never should have been looking for the outlet. He was rushing in that moment, turns it over, and leads to a Powell 3. So I think for Adelman, finding that 5th guy in these lineups is going to be a real challenge in the series, because so far it doesn't seem like he can trust anybody.
This is such a fascinating tactical series because these teams have so many great players and yet also some holes and weaknesses and one-way guys that they're going to play. And both coaches have skewed defense, I would say, a little bit more. I mean, Dunn is a huge fulcrum where they're going to leave him wide open in the corner. He hasn't really made them pay that much. I actually would be trying to take advantage of that more. As Denver, like in that first game with Westbrook and Dunn guarding each other, but essentially not guarding each other, and then trying to muck up all the offensive actions for the other team. So you throw in Chris Dunn on defense, and then also not having to guard the defensive player who's messing things up on the other end. And it's been way more of a defensive series than would have been expected. But I think Ty Lue has a few more things in his toolbox rotationally in terms of the strategy on Murray and Jokic than David Adelman can go to. So as long as the Clippers don't have some calamity, which obviously has long afflicted them in this era, if you just look at the way the two teams have played in the first 2 games, you have to say they have the advantage. But again, you're never going to count out Nikola Jokic just playing better as the series goes along and just dominating the way he did, like in that game 5 against the Wolves last year.
Yeah, for sure. You cannot count out Jokic. With that said, though, he is going against a player in Kawhi Leonard who is playing absolutely unbelievable basketball. He was the best player on the floor.
To see. It's so awesome to see. I mean, this is a guy who's had some of the greatest playoff games that we've ever seen. And that true shooting percentage stat is a great one. I wanted to look that up myself because I figured it had to be up there, going 15 and 19 the way he did.
Crazy.
But like we forget about this guy that he's every bit at the level of the great stars of this generation, Curry, Durant, even close to LeBron, I would say, when he was at his best. He just hasn't been. And so you're like, hey, even if he comes back, he's 34, how good can he be? But we've seen, especially in this era now, like 34, 35-year-old guys who were all-time greats still have it at this level.
It's interesting with it. If the Clippers, like you said, no, misfortunes, no injuries, if Kawhi stays healthy and, crosses the finish line, and if they win the title, he'd be the first guy in NBA history to have 3 championships separated by 5 years, 14 with the Spurs, 19 with the Raptors, and then it would be 25 with the Clippers, also with 3 different franchises. Just kind of crazy, his story. Just like you said, how he's this dominant player. He feels like a fictional legend. Like most of these guys that have injuries, they fall off. And yet here he is right now in 2025, looking like he's in peak condition, peak level. It looks like the 2019 version of himself right now. He had the good quote after the game where he said, it just feels good to walk off the floor and feel healthy. It could all fall apart, but man, it just feels good to watch Kawhi play like this. It really feels good. Unless you're a Nuggets fan, then no, it doesn't feel so good.
Yeah, and I'll give him and the Clippers medical staff credit because it seems like, he's taken forever to come back. We don't have any report. He comes back in January. But when he comes back from these things, he is healthy and ready to go and able to play. In contrast to Joel Embiid, I think they've managed his situation a lot better than kind of racing him back, hoping he plays his way into shape. Like they make sure that he's ready to go. And yeah, then maybe something will happen again and he'll have to go out again. But when he's been out there, they've been able to get him playing at a very high level. And, he is healthy when he comes back. Then he hurts himself again. But like Joel, for example, when he's been coming back, he just hasn't been healthy even to start with.
All right, let's move on to the Knicks and the Pistons. Detroit won that game too, 194. Series is now split 1-1. Weird fourth quarter because it felt like a repeat of game one. In game two, Knicks were down 90-78 in the fourth quarter and then tied it up 94-94. Felt like a repeat of that 21-0 run because Pistons just didn't score. They had 4 points over a 5-minute stretch from the 6:29 mark to the 1:15 mark. But then Schroeder hits a 3. Pistons get some stops, hit some free throws. They win the game by 6. And now the series is split 1-1. Going back to Detroit here, do you think the Pistons should be favored to win the rest of the series, Nate?
Certainly based on the way the two teams have played so far, I would say so. Now, as much as I think the Knicks' offensive stagnation is a major storyline, the Pistons have still been worse in these fourth quarters. So I do think the Knicks have the advantage down the end in the clutch. Cade also was brilliant, but then was as exhausted as I've ever seen a superstar at the end of that game, probably going back to like KD in the overtime of that game 7 against the Bucks in 21. And so, yeah, I still would give the Knicks the slight advantage. Like they do have more adjustments they can make. They have more talent. They have more ways that they should be able to get going. But I will be honest, Kevin, I don't necessarily trust Tom Thibodeau to push those buttons, particularly on the offensive end. Like that hasn't been his history as a playoff coach. It hasn't been his history as a regular season coach. We'd see, all right, Jalen Brunson gets the ball every single time. And then he goes out, oh, right, we do have Mikal Bridges on our team. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's maybe we can give him the ball a little bit more. And so, but they don't. Everything is station to station with the Knicks. It's a play call. It's Brunson pounding the ball. Then he makes the play. There's no flow. There's not really much in the way. Like they'll get movement within a specific play call, but there's not really much improvisation, not much of a system that I can see really where they're moving the ball, multiple options, multiple guys having a way to attack. Karl Anthony Towns has taken 5 3-point attempts in the whole series like that. He's supposed to be this generational shooting big. He called himself the best shooting big of all time. He's probably the best shooting center of all time. Except for Quentin Post, of course. And so he's just not getting his 3-pointers off. And they put Harris on him. Tom Thibodeau hasn't had a viable counter for that utterly predictable strategy. And so I do still think the Knicks have enough talent to grind it out in the clutch. But I'm not feeling great about it. I think the Pistons could easily win this series.
Yeah, you mentioned the Pistons putting a wing on Karl Anthony Towns. Tobias Harris has defended Cat on 90 of 133 possessions in this series. And, Towns didn't score the whole second half, didn't shoot after the 5:20 mark in the third quarter. Like, it's mind blowing how little he's getting used. And, if you're a Wolves fan, you're like, yeah, we've seen this story before. Lack of assertiveness. He's a baby out there. You can't trust him. But if you're a Bulls fan or a Timberwolves fan or now a Knicks fan, Tibbs has a lack of offensive imagination. How do you slice up the blame pie for Cat lack of assertiveness versus Tibbs for lack of offensive imagination?
Well, excuse me, did I miss all these possessions where Karl Anthony Towns was getting the ball and not attacking? I mean, I'd have to go back and look at the number of touches that he had, but it can't have been many. And I do understand they're like, all right, well, Karl, we're going to give it to you in the post against Tobias Harris, and you're going to back down and shoot like an impossible fadeaway, but without really drawing the double team. Okay, I understand that. Karl wants to drive headlong. He's not as bad at that as he was with the Wolves, but still can get out of control some. But I would say, run some shooting sets for the guy. Set a screen for him with Josh Hart. Try to get Duran switched onto him, and maybe he can shoot out of that. Or now at least you have their big center out of the play. That's the biggest reason that teams want to put their power forward on Towns. A, so they could switch any Towns-Brunson actions, and B, so that their center can be on a worse shooter in Josh Hart and still kind of mess things up. So if running Towns off of screens more off ball, and then you either have him do something with Brunson so Brunson can go against a center in conventional pick and roll coverage, or then you also at least have that center out of the play and some of the other guys can be more effective getting to the basket. But we just don't really see much of that at all.
Why do you think Tibbs doesn't use more two big lineups with Mitchell Robinson?
Well, I think the biggest reason is Robinson wasn't really healthy enough throughout the season to see a ton of it. Their other problem is they can't score.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. You see Dagnall with OKC. He's playing Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein down the stretch. He's openly admitting in the media scrums, hey, we know there's going to be bumps doing this, but we need to get this ready for the playoffs. Whereas Tibbs, even after Mitchell Robinson comes back, barely did it at all. And we have seen, I think, 14, 15 minutes so far in the postseason. I'm just surprised we didn't see it more in the regular season because you're right. That's probably why we're not seeing it much now. But I do think it could be helpful to see it.
I mean, they also were just once Brunson went out, that's about the time Robinson came back. They're just trying to survive and win games. Tibbs obviously puts a big premium on that. I would have liked to see it more, but Robinson's been on a 15-minute a game limit, and they just kind of wanted to just use him as the backup center. I remember Ariel Hukporti went out as well. They didn't really have a backup center that Tibbs trusted. So I think it was more just about wanting to get 48 minutes at center to not play them together. Now, should they have played the long game and maybe tried that? I guess so. I'm just, with this group, I'm not as big of a believer of the whole too big thing because I think Robinson is just too bad offensively. He doesn't really provide a pick and roll threat. If you blitz him, he's not going to be able to make the decision on the short roll. And so I think you're making the opponent lean into the whole idea of putting a wing on Towns, and so your spacing gets even worse. I don't think they need better defense in this series. They need better offense. So if Towns was just getting completely lit up and pick and roll defense every time, then you might say, well, okay, we'll go to this too big look.
Do we need to see more Brunson Towns pick and roll? Because through 2 games, they've only ran 10 per game. And to put that into perspective, Murray and Jokic had 35 pick and rolls in game 1. Halliburton and Turner had 19. Garland and Allen had 18. Kevin Porter and Bobby Portis had 13 in their game 1 together. So we're not seeing a lot of Brunson Cat. They had 14 per game during the regular season. So it's a bit down. Do you think that's a way to get Cat more of those 3-pointers you're talking about?
If you can get the center onto Cat first, then yes. I think if it's Harris, and I did think Brunson had a lot of success attacking Harris in game 1, they probably should have gone back to that a little bit more. And that is a way to get that switch because the Pistons don't want to play a conventional coverage that would get Towns open on the pick and pop. But also, Brunson's not that great of a pick and roll passer necessarily. Like he's going to pound it and try to get into the mid range on those more for his own offense. So I don't know that that's a panacea to get Karl-Anthony Towns going. And I think ultimately, one other thing you could say too is that Towns, this goes back to the lack of Nick's system too. Towns had 0 assists in the last game. Knicks had 15 on 34 field goals. So even if you're not going to have Karl-Anthony Towns isolate in the post, maybe you could get him down there and use him as a passer and do some off-ball screening actions, get the ball below the play, actually possibly get a back cut or a system bucket or something, but that's just not what the New York Knicks system consists of.
Yeah, the New York Knicks system is Brunson, pick and roll, ISO over and over. I know you're a huge Jalen Brunson fan, Nate. He's your favorite player, right?
But here's what kills me. He should be. He should, like, I love small guys with a great skill level. He's not necessarily the most athletic out there. Like his stop and start is elite. Like he's physical. He really wants to win, but he's now become my worst watch in the league. I to me, you could debate this, but I think he's gone beyond peak Harden at this point as just a simulator and a call jar on, I would say 80% of possessions on either end. If he's involved in an action, he may not get the call, although he did get fouled 12 times last night. I thought the Knicks complaining about the referees was quite rich in that regard, particularly given that like the Pistons get fouled when they're actually trying to make a play and they get fouled, whereas 8 of the 12 Brunson calls, when I went back and watched them, were specific actions to draw a foul. And so that's not the basketball that I want to see. And then on every other possession, it'll be like, oh, I caught the ball. I felt to look at it. I'm going to kind of stumble right as I catch it. Also, part of the reason why I think the offense is so stagnant is like every time he gets the ball, he needs to do some sort of foul drawing thing before he tries the actual move. And so, yeah, you know what? Like if I had hundreds of millions of dollars on the line and I wanted to win a championship, I would probably do the same stuff that he does. But I think it's on the referees and it's on the league to get rid of that kind of just utterly ridiculous foul drawing. And so all they need to do is just adopt the same thing as the FIBA refs. The FIBA refs, even if you're technically getting fouled, if you do something that's a non-basketball move, they'll just look at you and be like, like what was that? Was that why'd you just throw the ball up there? Like that's not basketball. Okay, if that's what you want to do out here, go ahead.
Yeah, the NBA ultimately rewarded this behavior. That's why it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse, especially with a guy like Brunson, who did not do this at Villanova. He was not like this in college. He was not like this early in his career.
Well, he didn't have the ball as much either, right?
Yes.
I mean, exactly. The more a guy has the ball, like KD talked about this once when he came to the Warriors. They're like, how come you're not drawing as many fouls? He's like, well, I don't get the ball as much. Like when you're getting 25 possessions a game to create, you're like, all right, well, I can try to draw the foul on some of these. And Brunson gets as many possessions. Like, I will give the league some credit, though, that they have tried to crack down on this stuff. I don't think it's as bad as it was. And that's part of why Brunson has had to up the ante beyond the level anyone else has been at. But, like, you know, they don't give the 3-shot foul when the guy feels contact and throw it up. They've made that more of a non-shooting foul. At least I think they should just not make it a foul at all if you shoot a shot that's not an actual basketball shot to try to draw a call. But they've tried some things, like now you can't like step way in, pump faking the guy and slamming into him. You can't veer off your path and make a guy run into you from behind as much. Like, so they've tried to get rid of this stuff, but I think it's still too literalist of an interpretation on these. I wish they would give the referees more leeway to just say, no, that was a bullshit play. We're not good.
I agree with you. I hope that's a change. And the officiating, it's been cool to see them let them play typically for the most part, more in the playoffs.
They've done a good job in the first half, I would say, on Brunson. And then in the second half, it's kind of fallen apart.
Yes. And I think you're also spot on. Cade on a lot of his drawn fouls. They're legitimate fouls that occurred for Cade. And he was great in that game too. 31 points on 21 shots compared to 21 points on 21 shots in game 1. So a huge upgrade for him in game 2. Let's talk about some news before we get to the other series, because some stuff came out this week. Landry Fields from the Atlanta Hawks was fired. Ansi Salah, the new general manager in Atlanta, he was formerly in Golden State. Nate, you're based in the Bay. What do you know about Ansi Salah?
Yeah, he definitely is a very process-oriented individual. A lot of people really like him. He's got good energy.
He's a big
around
beard,
the building.
huge beard. I thought about combing my out for today's show, but I did not do that.
Oh man, yeah, I cannot. I can't compete with either of you guys in that respect. Yeah, but so he's someone who is going to bring organization and process. That's what another Warriors person that I talked to about him yesterday said. Now, Ansi is. It looks like they're still going for a president of basketball operations at some point to put above him. Unclear how day-to-day involved that person will be, but I think they want someone with like more kind of league gravitas. They were hoping maybe that Grant Hill was going to be that person. He just hasn't had the time to do that or the inclination because he's in their ownership group. So they're looking for someone like that. There's a report that Elton Brand might be involved there, although Landry Fields is probably like, Elton Brand over me? Because yeah, but I don't know about you. I didn't think that Fields was particularly deserving of the chopping block given the transactions the Hawks have made, at least in the last year.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised for that reason. With that said, though, I'm a wrestler and Hawks ownership. It feels like it's always somebody different that has the ear of wrestler. Sometimes, like at one point, it was Landry Fields. He seems to be the guy that they really like. Other times it's Quinn Snyder's the voice that they listen to. And earlier or late last year, somebody told me that Salah was the guy that really was growing a loud voice in the Hawks front office. And so it feels like it's always somebody different with Atlanta. There's not much continuity with the front office at all. And so if I'm a Hawks fan, I'm a little bit concerned by that. And I don't feel like Fields made poor transactions this past year. I thought they did a pretty solid job overall. Ricochet obviously had a very poor play-in performance, but he ended the season great. He looked number one pick worthy. Second in rookie of the year, I'm sure he'll end up finishing. I feel like they did a solid job. Now, the question will be like, what does a new front office mean for the future of Trae Young? Chris Haynes, he reported this week on the Dan Patrick Show. He said that somebody in Trae Young's camp said that Trae wants to be in Atlanta. He's down with the process. He wants to be a pivotal part of this turnaround. What do you think should Trae Young's future be in Atlanta? Is he somebody that you would look to move, or are you more happy to keep building with him in Atlanta?
Well, they don't have their pick the next 2 years, and they also have a lot of young talent. I think that Trae Young can help to maximize that in the short term. The question becomes, what is Trae Young's next contract going to be? If they're going to give him the maximum that he's eligible for, which would be close to 35% of the salary cap, because remember, he's already on a 30% contract because he made the Rose rule when he got his first extension. That, going 4 more years of Trae Young at the 35% max, that I'm not too interested in. I think they need to try a little bit more to play hardball. And I might even go to the point of saying to his representation, look, like if you want to kind of behind the scenes, like whisper on, see if there's anywhere that wants to trade for you and give you that contract, we absolutely would be willing to play ball with that. If we can get a good package back, like we don't need to move forward with you. I suspect that, especially given the way Trae played this year with the Achilles and just not able to score particularly well, that there isn't such a team out there. And I think they've explored his trade value in the past. They ended up moving on from DeJounte Murray instead, which was a very good trade by them. But I would say, look, go ahead and look what's out there. And hey, you might not find anything. And then, let's negotiate on an extension, but it's not going to be the max.
I don't think it is out there. I think you're spot on, Nate. They've explored stuff in the past. They hope San Antonio would be a team if there were any team at all. And that just didn't happen. The Spurs got Fox. They're no longer a Trae Young team potentially. Orlando would be the other team, but I don't think Orlando's a great fit for Trae Young. Their lack of shooting as well. Trae's a high volume shooter, but he's not like elite efficiency shooter. That's what Orlando needs. He's not a great fit there. So I don't think there's a clear-cut team for Trae that would A, give him the max, as you're saying, or B, has the assets that make sense for Atlanta. And it's never mind his big inflated salary right now either. So I think Atlanta and Trey, in all likelihood, are going to stay married together for, at least the next 2 years. He has a player option for the 26-27 season. And then after that, he can hit free agency. So he could hit free agency in a year in 26 if he were to decline that option. So this could come sooner than later. But ultimately, I think for now, Trey's likely to stay with Atlanta unless a surprise team becomes available. I mentioned Reese Shea, the number one pick last year. The number one pick in this year's draft, will be Cooper Flagg. He officially declared for the NBA draft. So no questions anymore if Cooper would go back to Duke for his second year. Not happening. Nate, do you have a favorite team, favorite fit for Cooper Flagg of those teams in the lottery?
I think you can approach this in one of two ways. One is just, where would you like to see him from a basketball perspective and from an organizational perspective that's going to maximize his potential? And the other one is just, what team deserves it because they haven't been that dumb? Right? Like the New Orleans Pelicans getting Cooper Flagg so they can screw up a fourth generational superstar this century. I would not want to see that, right? I'm sick of these guys. New Orleans getting these number one picks. Like let's see someone else get a chance at it here. I mean, I think seeing him in Washington playing next to Alex Sarr would be really, really interesting. Obviously Utah I think his fit next to Lauri Markkanen would be pretty good as well. Brooklyn doesn't have any kind of a team at all. So I think him next to Wembanyama would be a little bit too ridiculous. I don't know. That would just like wreck the league utterly. Dallas, obviously, I don't want it to be them. I don't want it to be Chicago because the Chicago Bulls are just like not really playing the transaction game the way I think it should be played. And they're shooting for the 11th and 12th seed in the lottery every year. See, I think it'd be one of the like Utah, Washington, Charlotte. Those would be the teams I would probably want him to go to. Like, Toronto's like has such a weird team. I think Brooklyn would be fine.
Not Philly? You haven't mentioned not Philly?
No, I don't think so. It's like, it's too weird there. It's too messed up. I think his development would be somewhat stunted there with all these veterans. I mean, maybe that would lead to Philly rebuilding, but they're going to be totally hamstrung by the Embiid and George contracts. So I don't know how you build a really good team around Cooper Flagg 4 years from now. So yeah, I think it would be one of those top 3 seeds in the lottery.
Jared McCain, McCain, Flagg, Maxey, big 3 moving forward.
Well, but then they can't put anything else around those guys because they have they've got $100 million of Joel. Yeah. I mean, more than that. Honestly, it's going to be like $125 million or whatever it is of
crazy
Paul George and Joel Embiid on the books.
Crazy. You mentioned the Mavericks. They have a 1.8% chance of getting the number 1 pick. Unlikely to happen, but could happen. It could happen. Nico Harrison spoke.
That's what the Chicago Bulls had when they got Derrick Rose. So, all right. Anyway, Nico Harrison's presser was.
Yes, Nico Harrison spoke again. He was in front of the cameras this time. We got to see it all. I thought it was a disaster, Nate. Clearly he was nervous up there, understandably so, when people are chanting him to be fired. And he probably knows deep down inside that he made the wrong decision, no matter how much he doubles and triples down publicly, saying that, defense wins championships and all this BS. I think he knows he made a mistake and he can never admit that.
Why do you think he knows that? What makes you think that?
I just think the evidence is all there, man. I think sometimes over the course of time, you make a choice.
There's a lot of evidence before the trade was made too.
Of course. I think sometimes you make a choice, and in life, sometimes it takes the fallout to occur to realize maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't make an error.
No, I disagree with you. I think he does not realize it. He thinks, really? Oh, well, we got injured. That's why we didn't get to see this amazing group. Now, of course, perhaps the medical staff that he assembled might have something to do with being so injured. But no, because do you realize how convicted he must have been to have made the deal to begin with? I don't think he was like, 51-49. Yeah, sure. Let's get rid of Luka. It was, we got to get rid of this guy. There's this one guy that I want, Anthony Davis. I'm only going to talk to one GM about it. We're not going to let it get out. And we think Anthony Davis is so awesome that we're not even going to get everything that there possibly is from the Lakers, or just believing that Luka is like totally damaged goods and you just got to get rid of him before he completely implodes. He was so far in that direction to have done this that even though there has been some evidence since then that it's not going to work out or that it wasn't the right decision. Now he might, if you asked him, am I less sanguine about it working out? Yes, probably, because of the Kyrie injury. I mean, that's that. But in terms of just the process that he went through, the decision that he made, I think he still would totally believe he made the right decision.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, I just feel like I don't know with him how much of it is deflection, how much of it is just the way he really is thinking about things. But the quote he had about, I knew Mavericks fans love Luka. I underestimated how much they really love Luka. It's just it's also tone deaf to me. The comments about Dirk prior, and the behind the scenes interview where he said, my responsibility is to the Dallas Mavericks. Dirk Nowitzki, some people are going to be mad about it. Well, Dirk is the Dallas Mavericks. Obviously, that makes Mavs fans mad. Just feels like this is somebody without touch, without leadership skills. And a lot of that was put on display again with that presser on Monday. What stood out the most to you from that presser? What are you going to remember from it?
Oh, man. I think, just it's not the defense wins championships over and over thing from the non-camera presser. And then also the thing about the medical staff from that. I mean, I think that the non-camera presser, some of the quotes from that stick out to me.
Yes,
a little bit more. I don't know. It's all running together at this point. I mean, they're continuing to dig the hole and dig the hole and dig the hole. And but there's nothing that he could say other than just, I'm sorry I screwed this up, which is not going to be said. That's going to mollify anybody. And so every time he speaks, he's going to keep being asked about this stuff. It's always going to keep being a storyline. It's going to be a storyline because the Mavs fan base just wants more blood. Like they love seeing Nico Harrison embarrass himself like this. That's the only satisfaction that they have in their lives is having the local reporters just really go after him and make him look bad. Like that's more important than winning games probably the next 2 years. It's just that Nico be embarrassed and unceremoniously fired because of the franchise fan base bloodlust at this point. So there's nothing he's going to say that's going to make anyone feel better. Now it doesn't, and he's just not the sort who's ever going to back down either. And backing down is just, that's basically tantamount to admitting that he should be fired. So that's never going to happen.
Yeah, and I don't think, Nico also said how, we'll be contending next season. I just don't buy it. I don't see it happening. And I don't even think that would necessarily solve the angst and the frustration and the anger that Dallas Mavericks fans have towards him right now. I don't think winning next year would change that, despite what he feels. Other piece of news, Damian Lillard is returning for game 2. That game is tonight, Tuesday, if you're listening to this podcast today. He's returning from that blood clot issue, thankfully for Milwaukee. But how do you expect his return to change the Bucks offense, Nate?
Yeah, they really struggled to get up three-pointers. That's long been a focus of Rick Carlisle, and they kind of let Giannis get off. And my hope would be actually that more Dame, although in this first game back, it probably isn't realistic, but within the series, that more Dame can actually just create some more threes, but also free up Giannis to be better on defense. If the Milwaukee Bucks, as great as Giannis has been offensively and adding this mid-range jumper is great, like he had one of the best isolation scoring games I've ever seen him have in the playoffs in that game 1. But he didn't really have any assists and nobody else hurt them at all. And then when he would miss, he'd go flying into the cameras and Indiana would get another transition bucket. So at least they need Giannis on defense. That's where he could make the biggest difference. And that's part of why I've been lower on him, even as he's put up these great numbers these last couple of years, because he has been able to bring that level of defensive intensity. He did that briefly in the NBA Cup. And I thought, all right, well, maybe he still has this gear. And I picked the Bucks in the series thinking that maybe he could get to that level. He was awful in game one. The entire team was awful in their defensive execution in game one. Part of that is because they start Taurean Prince and Kyle Kuzma, especially if they're going to start Dame. They have to look at getting more defense and, frankly, like more active shooting as well, whether that's Trent, AJ Green, like starting both Kuzma and Prince, who are just sort of like bodies out there defensively and not really like active at all. Like you can't start both of those guys. And particularly if you're going to bring back Dame, you really can't, because then you're going to have no defense on the perimeter. But they just need Giannis to really like be flying around and wall off the rim and force the Pacers to beat them over the top, and also not give up transition. Like they just need to play with way more effort. I think if they can do that, they should be able to score, particularly if they're not taking the ball out of the net every single time.
You mentioned how Giannis had only the one assist in that game one. Indiana, I thought, did a good job. It's about as good as you can do sending two at Giannis. I know Giannis scored. It was, a lot of brilliant, drives to the basket and all that. But Indiana did do a good job helping and recovering to prevent some of those easy passing lanes. Did you see any adjustments Giannis could potentially make to create more playmaking opportunities for himself? Or was there something Indiana did that stood out to you?
Well, yeah, they don't help as much. And yeah, Giannis was great, but they scored 98 points in the game. And I think Giannis couldn't do anything in transition. The Bucks started 2 of 18 from 3. That didn't help very much either. So I think Giannis could try to kick the ball out a little bit more than he has. He could also make a free throw. That would really help a lot too. Because he was 8 of 15 from the foul line, and like this routine, he's not going to change his routine now after 15 years, but I wish he would just like get the ball and shoot it instead of counting to 10 before he shoots it and lets himself get in his own head.
It is funny how he improved the mid-range pull-up so much this year, but the free throws have not improved. Obviously, he's kind of eliminated most of his threes from his shot diet, but the free throws have not improved one bit, despite the mid-range improving. You mentioned like kicking it out more often. I think some of the playmaking decisions could improve as well. There was this play in the fourth quarter where, Giannis drove to the rim. Nesmith was on him from the right side of the floor. He drove left, spun right, and one of those unstoppable spin moves. But Nembhard helped into where Giannis was spinning to, while
Nembhard has been really good on those type of plays.
Unbelievable. He was in the perfect spot, and yet Giannis still kind of stepped through. But then Turner was there to meet him, and Giannis had an opportunity to kick it out to an open shooter, but he tried an interior pass instead, and Turner deflected that ball. Pacers got it. Some of the playmaking choices, I'm sure Giannis will watch the film back and has and say, yeah, I missed that opportunity. But even then, his teammates just didn't make a lot of shots. The Bucks don't have a lot of shooters out there. I agree with you. Start AJ Green or Gary Trent. Have more shooters out there next to Giannis, and hopefully that helps. But I do wonder who's the guy that's going to end up losing minutes here, because Rollins is a shooter. He's been a good shooter going back, to college. He was solid. G League, he shot over 40%, and the NBA he shot.
Well, he's also like probably the only guy they have that I feel okay defending Halliburton.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And so I wonder who's the guy that's going to get cut from the rotation now. Who would you cut from the rotation, Nate? Is it Kuzma?
Oh, yeah. I mean, maybe Doc is not the sort, I don't think. Like Doc is kind of funny, right? Like his pattern has been, we're fine, don't adjust. And then he just starts sort of like panic pushing buttons without a ton of, I think that's part of why his teams kind of lose it. The other reason I would say is because he's just like so involved with the referees. I think that sets the wrong tone for his team. But I think it would be focused to think about bringing Kuzma. Maybe you won't change the starting lineup, but taking Kuzma out pretty early unless he has it going, and then maybe bring him in with the second group and try to run at least a few plays for him to get him going. But yeah, I think Green or Trent would be the guy for Prince that I would bring in. I think those guys are just a little bit more aggressive as help defenders and can get over a screen a little bit better. And both of them, are not going to take one field goal attempt in 20 minutes. And then going back to Giannis, 1 assist, 5 turnovers. Bucks have 15 assists on 35 field goals. I do think getting Giannis into the post a little bit more would be better. Just kind of slow down his reads, tell him to maybe try to draw the double and kick out more for threes. Because I think like they do have guys who can get shots off, but Brook Lopez only took 2 in 21 minutes. I think Giannis has the size advantage on just about anyone. And I also, so much of it is Dame as well. Like, do they can they actually get that Dame Giannis pick and roll going? That's going to be a fascinating question because it always is disappointed with them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, it's been better this season, and yet still not the level that you would have anticipated it when they first acquired Dame. It's going to be interesting tonight. Tyrese Halliburton, The Athletic released an anonymous player poll, and 13 of 90 players voted him the most overrated player in the NBA. So will Halliburton come out with an edge trying to prove something tonight in game 2?
Well, he does it every other game. No, I thought he was good in game 1. Like he didn't need to score that much. He was 3 of 13, but he had 12 assists. He pushed the transition game. Everyone else was scoring. So I didn't, but they are going to need him in these playoffs to be better. And also, let's keep in mind, he had 12 assists and 1 turnover. His assist to turnover is great. They had 5 turnovers.
Outstanding.
The Bucks never force a turnover, and they never get an offensive rebound. And that just, like, the Bucks would have had a top 5 offense this year if they weren't last in the NBA in offensive rebounding. If they just had average offensive rebounding, and Doc doesn't believe in that. He wants to get back, but they didn't get back anyway. So you might as well go for an offensive rebound. You're giving up transition regardless.
Who would you have voted if you were asked most overrated player in the NBA?
Oh, the most overrated player in the NBA. Oh, Domantas Sabonis.
Good choice. Kings fans know I agree. I think besides Sabonis, I would have considered Jaren Jackson Jr. Awesome defender.
I would disagree on Jaren. I mean, it's first of all, like
5 boards a game, Nate. 5 boards a game at 6'10".
Well, all right,
35% from 3, super streaky.
They had a 107 defensive rating when he's on the floor, and they don't really have that many other good defensive players.
I'm just thinking of
those guys are not. And also, I don't think Jaren is like really that over. Like Sabonis is like getting all NBA, and like if he doesn't make the All-Star team, it's this huge snub, and like you just don't, the opposition
Kings fans. Kings fans are loud. They're very loud. That's why.
Yeah.
Very passionate.
Well, but like Jaren at least, like his offense, he's not a great passer, but if you have the wrong guy on him, he's going to destroy you. Whereas Sabonis, it's like he's only going to attack a mismatch, really. And Jaren is good on defense as well. Like I really like the rebounding is a problem, but he's
scoring.
Other than that, he spaces the floor for his teammates. Sorry.
Scoring inconsistency is as well as an issue. 35% from 3.
I mean, like he's not a number 1 offensive option. Like he's a number 2, but he's a number 1 defensively. And I agree. Like his fouls are too dumb. Like he's not a top 10 player in the league, but I would have had him all NBA this year.
Yeah, I just thinking of somebody besides Sabonis. Trying to give some respect to Kings fans besides Sabonis. We get the Thunder and Grizzlies. I'm not expecting.
Here I'll give you my number 2
to win a game. Okay, who's your number 2?
Stephon Castle, number 2.
Stephon Castle.
Yeah, as far as the player that he is right now, is incredibly overrated. It's like 8 points below the league average in true shooting, and he shoots like he's got like a 25 usage. Like he's maybe the most damaging offensive player in basketball, particularly because when he doesn't have the ball, he's mucking everything up for you on every possession by not being guard. Like you could put your center on him, right? Like he just shot every time once Victor went down, but giving opposing teams the ability to just put their center on him and put a power forward on Victor and like not spacing the floor and then but still shooting every time and like totally inefficiently, like that's really damaging. Like, and he's solid defensively 1-on-1, but he's not one of the best guards. So I would have had Ricochet way above him for rookie year. I didn't have Castle in my top 3 as far as just what the player he is right now. Like it's really damaging. Like you might believe, all right, he's going to learn how to shoot and then he's going to be a monster. Like I understand that viewpoint. If you like him as a prospect, I don't think he's going to learn how to shoot, but yeah, the fact that he's always just like the obvious rookie of the year, everyone's going to vote for him. I was like, what?
Yeah, I don't think he was obvious It was close. I voted
Most
him
people
over
said that,
Reese
though,
Shea.
I would say.
Yeah. I do think a lot of people said it was obvious, and it shouldn't have been obvious. On Sunday, we had 2 1-8s and 2 versus 7s. It's kind of a symptom or byproduct of the play-in that we get all 1-8s and all 2-7s on the same day. We had the Heat and the Cavs, the Magic and the Celtics, and then, of course, the Thunder and the Grizzlies, that massive blowout for OKC. I like the play-in. I love the play-in, but I kind of wish we could get some of those games spaced out on either day. It was too many 1-8s and 2-7s on one day. Did you feel that on Sunday, Nate?
Did they do that before? Like the 2-7s, I seem to remember some of them being on a Saturday, but maybe I'm wrong about that. But yeah, I agree. I mean, that's one day, but I think they're going to change up throughout the. I don't think it'll be that way next weekend. Maybe I can look at that, but
it won't.
Yeah, it wasn't a great day. I like it because then I can just like actually spend a little time with my family while everyone else is watching to see whether the Oklahoma City Thunder win by 58 and set the record or not. But yeah, I mean, those two series, my biggest takeaway on them is just Celtics, Thunder, Cavs look like what they're supposed to be so far. None of those teams, the lower seeded teams, are not going to be a threat in those series. So I'm basically using it as a litmus test on where those teams are. And those are the 3 best teams all year. They looked like it in game 1. So that's all I was really hoping to see there. Those teams take care of business, which they did.
I agree. And also we get some moments like Mazzulla yelling at Tatum to get up when he was under the basket. Mazzulla was asked this morning about that, like what was going on the sideline when that happened. And Mazzulla's deadpan just says one word: love. The guy's crazy in all the best ways, Nate.
Well, I mean, isn't it just didn't he do that because it's more just like he just wants him to get up and not be hurt, not that like he's being a wuss by not getting up? Like I think it's more just that he's sort of trying to like wish it into existence that he wasn't hurt.
Maybe that's what it was, but he told the training staff not to go over. He just says, "Get up." It's hilarious. It was quintessential Joe Mazzulla, who was, I love the dude. First year with the Celtics, did not like him. But ever since then, the dude's been a great coach and a very, very amazing character in the NBA. The one interesting game on that Sunday was between the Warriors and the Rockets. Warriors won that game as the 7th seed, 95-85 over the Rockets. And according to Cleaning the Glass, Houston had a 65.5 offensive rating in the half court. They shot 6 of 29 from 3. Do you see anything that Houston can do to score more efficiently moving forward in this series, Nate?
Well, Green and Van Vliet aren't going to shoot this badly from 3. Like those guys had largely pretty good looks, I would say. Now the Rockets are they're mostly an interior team. Draymond Green was incredible contesting shots. The NBA's hand tracking had him contesting 18 shots in game 1. Nobody contested more than 7.
Wow.
So he was awesome, forcing misses around the basket. And part of that, too, is the Warriors don't attack the basket that much. Or if they do go to the rim, they do it because nobody's there. So I thought that Green was unbelievable. And particularly with the pacing of the series, he should be able to continue that. And Houston still got a bunch of offensive rebounds. I think part of their offensive rebounds are maybe not as devastating as like Denver's are, because Steven Adams is a great offensive rebounder, but he also isn't really going to get a bunch of putbacks. Like he sort of just carves out space, gets it, and kicks it out to someone who's not going to make the shot. So I think the offensive rebounding is not quite as devastating as it could be. Like they can play better than they did though, and they also can force more turnovers. They can get out in transition more than they did as well. Jabari Smith could never dribble again. That would help. And so they'll be a little bit better. And I thought that they have to feel pretty good about their own defense, because Steph can do this at every time, but he still is not going to shoot quite as well as he did every single game. And I think the guy that I'm fascinated to see is Jimmy, and whether, because he actually was able to score some one-on-one. He's turned into playoff Jimmy. It's absolutely absurd how he does this every year. So that's the question I want to see is sense. Whether...
I don't get it, Nate. Yeah. I don't get it. How does he do this every single year?
Yeah, he's shooting like 25% from mid-range as a Warrior before, and then he just decided, well, playoff Jimmy's come a little early in that Clipper game, and now he's like aggressive. He's like scoring on fadeaways over the best perimeter defender in the league, Ben Thompson, and like it's. Although I don't know, I've both of the Thompson twins I think have not been quite locked in mentally enough. As a quick aside, but that's the thing I want to see is like, can Jimmy still score well enough that because I think Golden State is going to have games where they just can't score at all, and if Houston just shoots 30% from three instead of 20%, they can win games in this series. So Golden State, I picked them to win. Like ultimately, I don't think Houston can score well enough throughout the course of the series to win enough games, but they can definitely still win games in the series, I think.
Yeah, I think they can win games in the series as well. I originally picked Houston at 6. Obviously, I don't feel as good about that after game 1. Şengün,
I do respect the pick, though. I thought that was a like 51-49er. I was higher on the Rockets than some. I ultimately went with the Warriors because I just thought Houston wouldn't be able to score against this really good Warriors half-court defense. But like, I could absolutely see that. I mean, Houston dominated them in a game I saw in person 2 weeks ago at Chase Center.
Yeah, and Amen Thompson defended Steph incredibly in that game. Wasn't quite as impactful in game 1. Şengün, best Rocket in game 1, had 18 shots in the game. And with him, I know it's hard to get him more looks, but I don't feel like Van Vliet should have more field goal attempts than Şengün in a game. He had 19 in the game. Şengün had 18. Jalen Green had 15 in the game. I'd like to see Houston find ways to get Şengün more opportunities, because you mentioned that game a couple of weeks ago, Nate, where Şengün had moments where he's overpowering Draymond Green and he's outquicking Kevon Looney. I think Şengün is the half-court matchup problem for the Warriors defense that the Rockets need to find a way to get going far more often, because Van Vliet, I know he's going to have a game where he shoots better. Jalen Green should have games where he shoots better as well. But Şengün's the guy that I think consistently you can lean on more often in this series. I'd like to see Houston find ways to get him 20-plus shots per night.
Yeah, well, Golden State has some of the best help defenders of this generation all on their team. And the Rockets don't have any shooting. Like I thought that, like I didn't think that Van Vliet and Green were like taking bad shots, or if they did, it was because it was at the end of the clock. Like it's harder for a center to create at the end of the clock than it is for a guard. But I thought like Green and Van Vliet were walking into some pretty wide open threes off the pick and roll, and the Warriors were able to live with that in part because they're worried about sticking to Şengün in the pick and roll. And yeah, if you're going to, I don't know that throwing him the ball on a post up against Draymond Green over and over again is like going to work that well, because the Warriors just have a lot of guys who can help. And I think that could force some turnovers. So I didn't think that maybe they could have gone to him a little bit more. I would actually like to see the Van Vliet Şengün pick and roll a little bit more just to try to get Şengün the ball in space. But then when he is coming down, he's kind of got to shoot that floater because the paint is packed. I think they need, I will respectfully disagree with you on that. That I don't, maybe, 3-4 more plays running through him, but like they don't really have the shooters to run that kind of handoff game either. So you're just asking him to do a lot. I thought he largely delivered, but the Warriors just are too smart and have too many good defenders to just say, all right, throw it to Şengün, and that's what we're going to do. Like the Warriors have dealt with much better ISO players than that over the years.
Everything you're saying, Nate, I just want to break the in case of emergency glass. Reed Shepherd, get him out there. Bring him, put him out there. Let's bring out a shooter. Somebody that shot over 50% from three the final 4 months of the year. Limited minutes, a lot of garbage time. I know. But Shepherd's a bucket. I do wonder, I'm just saying, in case of emergency, if you're down 2-0 in a game 3, maybe that's where you pull out Reed. Do you agree with me there? Maybe if you're down 2-0, can't score.
On paper, he is somewhat of an antidote. Now, defensively, he's made too many mistakes. I think that's probably the biggest reason he hasn't gotten on the floor, in addition to the fact that he just shot so horribly the first part of the year. And I think eventually he'll be fine on defense because he's strong enough. He's got good hands. He's aggressive. But in this matchup, like he's going to make mistakes against Steph Curry, against the Warriors. They punish defensive mistakes probably more than just about any team. And even like Houston is not like an unbelievable rim protecting team with Şengün. And so they might have to do that, but Ime doesn't trust him. Like if he had been playing all year, and I think maybe he was starting to work his way into possibly being in the back of the rotation again, and he messed up his thumb. So I just don't think that Ime trusts him enough. I understand. I don't think that's going to work. Maybe they do it if it's desperate, but he just is like, you don't see guys who've been totally out of the rotation like this all of a sudden come in and make a difference unless they're just,
it's not happening.
Like, I agree with you though. Like his theoretical skill set would be great.
That's why they took him.
Obviously. Yeah. Yeah. And I still would take him over Risa Shea or Castle just because of what I saw in the beginning of in summer league and on film, because those guys didn't impress me that much. But yeah, he's not going to play.
Yeah, I don't see it happening either. It would be nice to see it, though. Yeah. It would be nice to see Reed Sheppard get an opportunity to be a playoff hero. Me and Tom Haverstraw also had him ranked number 1 in the draft.
No, me too. Me too. Wow. Especially in a draft that was not that great. If you had to do a redraft of this draft, top 3, just right off the top of your head.
I'm still taking Reed number 1. I'm still taking Reed number 1.
Yeah, and I might not change. I would probably move Reese. He was not in my top 3 before. I'd have him in the top 3. I probably would actually still have Sarr.
Huh. I think I originally had Reed. I had Reed 1, Castle 2, Klingon 3, if I remember correctly. Or Klingon and Castle might have been flipped. I'd move Sarr up from 7. I think that's where I had him. I'd move Risa Shea up into the top 3 as well. It's something like that. I think I'd still have Castle in the top 3. I'm more bullish on him than you are. Wolves and the Lakers, Nate. We did not talk about this series yet, our final series here. Yeah. Wolves win that game 1 over the Lakers. It's going to be interesting to see what type of adjustments JJ Redick makes here. I'd like to see a bit more post-ups from LeBron and Luka. Yeah. They only had 6 in that game 1. They did score 9 points on those post-ups. What are you looking for in this game, too, from the adjustments the Lakers could make?
Yeah, I do like that because it does pierce the shell of that defense, allows them to kick out more easily to shooters. I think it's a better way of attacking mismatches. The biggest thing, though, is just LeBron and Austin Reeves did not play very well. LeBron didn't look great physically, wasn't able to get by Rudy Gobert, wasn't able to get by Naz Reid. The Lakers got smoked in transition.
He got blocked, twice on drives to the rim?
Yeah. And so I think like they'll come out with more of a physical edge because you get that yo-yo effect, particularly the game 1 loser at home. They always come out and kill him in game 2. I expect the Lakers to win tonight, but I think if they don't win comfortably, then it's time to be worried about them in this series. Because usually, all right, you lost it in game 1. It's natural for the road team to be like, we got our split. Like, just history has shown that game 1 loser in game 2 at home is just a massive favorite. I think they had won like 16 or 17 in a row up until, I want to say it was Nuggets Wolves last year, in fact, which ended up being, of course, a huge blow up. But the matchup advantages, I think, like all of this kind of systemic stuff really favors the Wolves. The length, probably the 3-point shooting, the overall depth. Like I think the inability to guard Anthony Edwards, no rim protection for the Lakers. And so if you think the Lakers are going to win the series, LeBron and Luka and Reeves to a certain extent are just that good. And so if those guys can't just like completely dominate the game offensively, like that's how the Lakers win. If they can't do that, all the other stuff shifts towards the Wolves.
Do you think the Lakers should be blitzing Anthony Edwards more in pick and rolls? This season, Lakers were not a heavy blitz team, did not put 2 on the ball much often. Anthony Edwards, of course, was blitzed 15% of the time, led the NBA. It's been well talked about. Do you think the Lakers should change their defensive philosophy to try to get the ball out of Ant's hands more often?
It's really difficult. I think because they just don't have the personnel to fly around that way. They don't have rim protection. I think they just need to execute better what they've been doing because it's the only way. It's just creating a big shell and forcing teams to beat them over the top. certainly they can try to make Ant's catches harder and little micro things here and there. But like the Lakers defense is just going to look bad when the opponent is hitting shots, because then that's going to open them up. They feel like they have to close out more. They don't really have any rim protection, so teams are going to hurt them there. And so it gets back to like not allowing transition, not turning it over, and just playing a solid enough game. Just raise the floor of your defense. Because they don't have a high gear for their defense. You raise the floor enough, maybe slow the game down that Luka and Reeves and LeBron can then do enough on the offensive end, hopefully get to the foul line more to take the air out of the Wolves transition game. That's, I think, the way that they need to do it. I think something like, we're going to blitz Anthony Edwards. Like, Edwards was 8-22, and he was 1-7 at the rim. Like, it was
9 assists anyway,
on
as
him.
well.
Yeah, right,
Yes.
exactly. The 9 assists. And, like, the Wolves aren't going to shoot it this well from three. They're 15-26 at one point. They're a good shooting team overall, not in the starting lineup, but everyone they bring off the bench is a really, really good shooter. So they're just going to have to, I think, kind of live with getting beat in certain ways in this series, because that's what the personnel dictates. I think if they get out of that shell and put two guys above the 3-point line, then everyone else is just going to get to the basket and kill them. They're going to look even worse.
Yeah, I mean, you could play Jackson Hayes more than 8 minutes like you did in game one, but that's not going to allow you to.
Well, but then their offense, like they need the 5 out. That's the other thing, is they got, and I mean, the Wolves switching actually worked really well in game one, I thought, too. Lakers made every shot early, but when they were only up by like 5 and they were 6-11 from 3, I was like, this is actually advantage Wolves. That's how it turned out.
Nate, appreciate you joining me today, man. Where can we find all your stuff?
Oh, yeah. Well, you can find me either on Blue Sky or on Twitter at Nate Duncan NBA. And we're doing live calls of every game, simulcasts on playback and YouTube. That's probably the most interesting thing to the audience. And then wrapping everything up after the games on Dunked On or my subscription product, Dunked On Prime. But check out the live calls, especially if you're getting a little frustrated with the national announcers. We love to point out all the defensive concepts in real time. I basically try to do play-by-play, but as a color guy to make it more detailed as opposed to just he shoots, he scores. And so a lot of people really like that product. We hope that it could be a way for people to learn more about the game. So that's why we put that out there.
You do a great job, Nate. Appreciate you joining me today, man. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, man.